Hi everyone, this is Casey Astrology. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. I'm a tropical Vedic astrologer that makes cards of truth and human design videos. So in today's video, I'm going to be taking a look at the human design charts of the music artists Drake and Kendrick Lamar. And of course, if you're a listener of rap music or hip hop, and you're a fan of those kinds of music, you know that Drake and Kendrick Lamar, are two really big stars in the hip hop industry. And another thing that you probably know, even if you're not a hip hop fan, is that both of these rappers are currently engaged in a fiery rap battle or a rap beef. So, as a rap fan myself, following this beef, it's been interesting for me to observe both Drake and Kendrick's human design charts and see how their energies are playing out in real time. And that's been really fun for me, so I thought it would be a fun idea to make a video dissecting Drake and Kendrick Lamar's human design charts. And so that's what today's video is going to be about for you guys. So let's jump right into it. Something really interesting to note about Drake and Kendrick Lamar right off the bat is that they are both only 8 months apart in age, which means they fall within the same 1.5-year nodal transit. So both Drake and Kendrick Lamar have their Rahu and Ketu, or their North Node and South Node axis, in Aries and Libra. What makes this fact even more significant right now is that Rahu is currently transiting in Aries and Ketu is currently transiting in Libra, meaning both Drake and Kendrick are currently going through their nodal returns at the moment. Nodal returns are really significant transits because they only happen about once every 18 to 18.5 years. So because of this fact, or these facts, and the fact that Drake and Kendrick both share the same nodal axis in astrology, this makes their nodes in human design even more important to look at. So I've decided to focus on Drake and Kendrick Lamar's nodal axis in this video that I'm going to be making today about their human design. So to do this, we're going to be looking at the human design variables in both their charts, which are connected to the nodes of the moon, or the nodal axis. So when you pull your human design body chart, every person has 4 arrows above their chart which point either left or right. These 4 arrows are referred to as the variables, or the 4 transformation arrows. The variables describe how you are meant to really take in, process, and filter information, and how this determines your perspective in life. Since Drake and Kendrick share the same nodal axis, we're going to be looking at the bottom left and the bottom right arrows in their human design, because these are the arrows which are determined by one's north and south nodes in their chart. So the bottom left arrow determines your optimal cognitive environment, and the bottom right arrow determines your cognitive perspective in life. Something that's very interesting that we can determine immediately by looking at the bottom left and bottom arrows in both the charts of Drake and Kendrick Lamar is that both Drake and Kendrick represent each other's cognitive distraction or transference because of the mirroring nature of their arrows. And I'm going to explain how that works as we go through the video. So let's begin by looking at the bottom left arrow in the human design chart, which again reveals the optimal environment where a person can thrive both mentally and physically. This arrow again is determined by your nodal axis, and there are 6 environments, 6 different environments in total. But each environment has 2 iterations. There's the observed environment and the environment of the observer. And of course, the interesting thing about Kendrick and Drake's charts is that they are both designed for cave environments. So the cave environment is where both Drake and Kendrick Lamar can really thrive as individuals, both physically and cognitively. However, there's one main difference between their cave environment, and that's that Drake's environment arrow is facing left, which means that he needs to be observed in his selective cave environment, while Kendrick has his environment arrow facing right, which means that he needs to be an observer in his blending cave environment. So it's really no wonder that both men are recording artists and rappers, because music studios or recording booths actually make excellent caves. So that's really funny for both of them and interesting. Now, as a selective cave person, or someone who needs to be in an observed cave environment like Drake, the type of studio space that he would prefer is an enclosed room with his back to the wall where he can be alone, and most likely with only one entrance, so that he can see and have some control over who's coming and going out of his space. These personal details are what give him a feeling of security, so he can really focus on relaxing and recording his music. And again, it's important to reiterate that Drake's environment arrow is pointing to the left, which means that he's meant to be observed and to be an active participant in his environment. So because of this, it means that he likes to really know his environment, and it really feels more comfortable for his energy to be familiar with his environment. And so through that familiarity, that's where others can really observe him in his energy and in his natural habitat. And it really allows his energy to feel more grounded, present, easy, and comfortable for him. And so this is part of the reason why Drake makes himself so visible online and through social media, doing interviews, podcasts, videos, all that kind of thing. It's because he has an observed environment. So he is meant to be observed by people. So people with a left-facing environment arrow need to be very active and engaged in their environments, and it's actually recommended that they get on camera and make videos to share themselves and their creative aspirations and what inspires them creatively with the public, because that's what allows them to be observed in their energy and in their natural habitat. And that's what will breed familiarity for that individual, and therefore give them an outlet for the focused use of their energy and creativity. And that's how Drake operates as a selective cave environments person. Now, in contrast with the right-facing environment arrow, this is a blending cave. So Kendrick Lamar thrives in blending caves environments. And this means that in his ideal music studio, let's say, he would likely prefer more of like a communal cave in nature, as opposed to an isolated cave like Drake prefers. So what this could look like is more of an enclosed communal space with multiple entry points where the energy is more free-flowing and relaxed, and perhaps more people are milling around, and where Kendrick himself can also come and go as he pleases. As someone with a right-facing environment arrow, Kendrick Lamar is an observer as opposed to Drake, who needs to be observed. So what the observer means is that he needs to be more passive, a more passive participant in his environment. So his energy feels more natural and flowing when he's watching what's happening around him. And he's really observing the moments, observing the movements, the interactions, the scenery of his environment that he's in. And in this case, he doesn't necessarily have to know his environment, which is what a left-facing arrow needs. They really need to know their environment and kind of be in more of a routine or a scheduled kind of environment. For someone who has a right-facing arrow or an observing environment, it just means that Kendrick feels more comfortable when he's watching the interactions around him. And again, this can be in a potentially new or different environment. It doesn't always have to be the same fixed environment, which is what someone like Drake, who has an selective caves environment, prefers. And so, based on the differences between their shared cave environments, I can see that Drake probably prefers recording his music in like an isolated studio where he can become locked in on his environment and really focus on his music, his writing, recording, and that whole process. Whereas Kendrick prefers more of an open concept studio space where he has access to other people, where he can be receptive to outside influences, and then cultivate more of like a free flowing energy to spark his his inspiration, his ideas. And this is really the type of environment that helps in his writing process and his recording music and all of that. And so that's a bit of an overview or a description of each of Drake and Kendrick Lamar's shared cave environments. So it's really interesting to me how I notice online that Drake gets a lot of flack for the amount that he is visible, like his presence on social media, the videos that he does, the reels, the memes, the interviews on podcasts that he does. I know that it seems like, especially recently, he gets a lot of flack for being so visible online. But that's part of his environment. That's what he needs to thrive. And in the same token, I noticed that Kendrick isn't online as much, at least physically. Like, he's not seen as much as Drake. He's not in front of his audience or in front of cameras or things like that, the way that Drake is. So it's really interesting to me to see this play out in real life, just through studying their different human design environments and how their cave environments really mirror each other, with Drake being part of the selective observed cave environment and Kendrick being in the blending or observer cave environment. And something I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video is that the environment variable in human design, so it's the bottom left facing arrow on the left hand side, the bottom arrow, this is determined by your design nodes in human design. And the perspective arrow, which is on the bottom right facing side, this is what's determined by your personality nodes. So I just wanted to make that clear, because I forgot to mention that at the beginning of the video. So now that we've looked at Drake and Kendrick Lamar's environment, and the environment that they both are meant to thrive in, now we're going to be looking at their perspective, or the view that they both take in life. And the view arrow, or the perspective arrow, is on the bottom the bottom right of your variables. And again, it's influenced by your personality nodes. So now we're going to be looking at the bottom right arrows for both Drake and Kendrick Lamar. So the bottom right arrow determines a person's perspective or view in life. And their perspective refers to how we are meant to really perceive the world around us in the most aligned way possible for ourselves. So there are 6 different views or perspectives in total. However, each perspective has a transference view or a distraction view, which leads the person into an alignment. Interestingly enough, Drake and Kendrick both represent each other's distraction or transference perspective. Just like they both mirror each other in their environments, when it comes to their perspective, they both actually represent each other's distraction view, which takes them out of alignment when they delve into each other's energy. So with that being said, first we're going to start by looking at Drake's unique perspective of the world. And again, this is all based on the personality nodes in a person's chart. So Drake's perspective is called survival, and he perceives his life through the survival perspective. Those with survival perspective are concerned with practicality, self-preservation, resilience, and trust in themselves. Survival perspective people are often attuned to their immediate environments and instinctively aware of potential threats to their resources or well-being. Not only is this perspective focused on physical survival, however, but they're also can be really well equipped to protect their mental health and to handle emotional challenges while maintaining psychological balance as well. And although survival perspective is primarily focused on oneself and their own personal well-being, those with this perspective do actually have the capacity to help others in navigating their survival as well through giving emotional support, practical advice, and sharing their resilience with other people. But in doing this, they must be careful not to sacrifice their own well-being because they're trying to help someone else. It's when a survival person tries to carry other people while ignoring their own personal needs for their well-being, the survival of their well-being, that's when they can be led into their distraction perspective, which is called wanting perspective. And again, Drake is a survival perspective, and Kendrick is actually wanting perspective. And this aspect of survival perspective people going into transference by sacrificing their own well-being to carry others, it really reminds me of some of the past behaviors of Drake of kind of getting into these rap beefs with different artists, because I know in the past he's also gotten into beefs with Pharrell and Pusha T. And through my research, I learned that originally that beef started with Lil Wayne. And it was Lil Wayne that actually had the original conflicts with Pharrell and Pusha T. And that basically was his thing. And for whatever reason, he kind of either bowed out or people felt like Lil Wayne lost, and then Drake decided to pick up those beefs and start beefing with those two people. And I feel like it really pulled him into his distraction perspective again of not worrying about his own survival, but wanting to solve other people's problems, basically. And yeah, that's just something interesting that I was thinking about. So now we're going to talk about wanting perspective. And this is the way that Kendrick views his life or perceives his life. This is through the wanting perspective. The wanting perspective is not about aimless or uncontrolled desire. It's about the conscious understanding of what we truly want, and how these wants are really related to our unique design and life path. So if a wanting person or a wanting perspective person begins to veer towards superficial wants that are more so influenced by external factors or societal expectations of them, then they are being influenced. That's when they are being influenced by their distraction perspective, which is survival view. The wanting perspective person needs to view their wants as not obstacles to overcome, which is more so how a survival perspective views their obstacles, but more as of an important part of their personal journey. So they need to learn to only cater to their genuine wants that stem from their true nature and validate their own individuality, as opposed to material desires and wants, which may be emphasized by watching others and societal pressures, basically. So someone like Kendrick with this wanting perspective, they really need to use their discernment when approaching things that they think that they want. And so it's interesting to really think about how Kendrick entered this beef with Drake. The way that it started was that Drake did a song with J. Cole called First Person Shooter, where they both give Kendrick props really and talk about how they're the top three rappers or the big three rappers and kind of giving him his flowers type of thing. But I guess for whatever reason that really triggered Kendrick and it made him come back in another record, basically taking shots at both Drake and J. Cole. And so I think it's interesting to think about whether or not Kendrick was was in transference when he decided to come back at Drake and J. Cole. Was he doing it through going into his distraction view of survival and thinking, well, I don't want to be third best or second best or whatever. I want to be the top of my game kind of thing. So maybe like a societal pressure to be number one? Or did he do it because of his wanting perspective and being in alignment with his true desires or his true genuine want of wanting to be better and be the best and not be associated with others and to kind of make his own name for himself? I think it's really interesting to think about whether or not he kind of entered this beef through the approach of his distraction view of survival or if he did it through wanting view. Yeah, so that's something really interesting to think about, I think. And I think knowing what we learned about Drake's survival view of the world and how that works, and Kendrick's wanting view of the world, it makes sense that Drake has maintained such longevity in hip hop. And I think it's something like 10, 15 years that he's been at the top of like the rap world. So he really is instinctually aware through his survival view of what he needs to do to survive and what resources he has to maintain to maintain the survival of not only himself but the people who he loves and surrounds himself with. And the fact that Drake is also able to share his success by promoting other artists and giving them features on his songs only shows that he is able to share his resources and maybe teach other artists how to survive as well, or to give them a perspective of how that works or what that looks like. And with Kendrick's wanting view, we can really see that displayed through the moralistic and conscious approach he takes to his songwriting and his lyricism and the music that he produces. His music usually has more of a conscious lens behind it as opposed to all mainstream rap, really. And it's noteworthy that while Drake releases his new music quite regularly as a survival perspective person, Kendrick takes much longer to produce his albums. More so as one would do as like someone making a manifesto or an producing an artistic masterpiece. That's kind of more of Kendrick's approach as a wanting perspective. So what's important to him as a wanting perspective person is much more individual to himself as an individual rather than, say, the hip hop trends of the moment in the rap and hip hop world, or what the hip hop and rap society really expects of him. Materialistically, that is, or commercially. He's able to be true to himself rather than playing to the commercial expectations of the industry that he's in. Even the fact that Kendrick calls himself Mr. Morale is very important as a wanting perspective person. And so, yeah, this concludes my analysis of Drake and Kendrick Lamar's nodal axis in human design. I really found it interesting taking a focused look at their two bottom variables and really analyzing them. So I hope you enjoyed the video and let me know what you think. And if you did enjoy the video, please do me a favor and like the video and subscribe and hit the bell notification to be notified for whenever I post a new video. It really helps me out when you do all these things. It really helps my channel to grow. And if you want to see more Drake content, I actually did a video a few years ago. I did a Cards of Truth reading for him. So I'm going to be linking that below if you want to check that out. And if you're interested in more of my human design videos and content, I'll leave a link to my human design playlist below as well. And if you enjoy human design and would like to purchase a transit calendar, I'll leave a link for my 2024 human design calendar in the description below as well, so you can check it out. So yeah, thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.